Hello, Premium Queen. How are you doing today? Awesome or awesome? It has to be awesome and amazing. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, if this is your first time here, thank you. Don't forget to like this video and click the subscribe button. Let's get the message out there that we can all thrive and that our dreams are valid. In the last video, in case you haven't seen it, check the link below. I talked about my marriage failure. But before I got to that point, with the idea that I had gotten from the Bible in 2 Kings chapter 4 verse 2, as I talked about in the video, I didn't give into analysis paralysis. I didn't waste time. There's a scripture that says the man at the pool of Bethesda, it was really about whoever jumps into the pool first is the one that gets the solution. So when you get an idea, don't overanalyze it. Jumping, do it anyhow, do it the way that you can. You never know what will come out of it. But within 48 hours, I was in the market to buy 2 kg of maize, to prepare pap. Pap really is a traditional breakfast cereal in Africa. So I'm from Nigeria. The Westerners, the Yorubas, call it ogi. The Igbos call it akamu. And then the houses, the northern Nigerians, would call it cocoa. In Ghana, it's cocoa. In South Africa, it's merely pap. It's a traditional African breakfast cereal. Natural, healthy. Even if I must say so myself. So within 48 hours, I was in the market, but the product, the raw material, which is maize, which was what I started with. And between myself and my nanny, who right now I can confidently say was my first employee, we processed the maize into pap. Back then in 2012, there was no WhatsApp, so it was the BlackBerry phones that we used to use. And so I produced the product, put it on my BlackBerry, and did a broadcast, which right now I know was a marketing message, but I just found something interesting, put it up there, and talked about the nostalgia of having pap growing up, and just sold the product. And within one day, what I processed was sold off. And I'm like, okay, I think I've got something here. That began a tradition of every Thursday, Friday evening, I would send out a message, another BlackBerry broadcast message, asking who was interested in having pap and all that for their Saturday morning breakfasts. And people would come pick up, and that was it. I would even pack, I still had the store at the time, so where I'm selling your Dolce & Gabbanas, your Pradas, your Gucci's, name it, your Fendi's, all of it. And no, they weren't copy, they were the original thing. And I would have a small brown cooler of pap. So whilst you're buying your designer items, I was more interested in getting you to buy my pap for 600 naira a bowl of raw pap. And that I found very exciting. Every Friday, I'll send out this message, and the name Bube's Foods was simply because my other business, the retail store, was Bube's Place, and I was trying to find a way to get my existing customers in the store to know that it was still me. So, to just that link between myself and the existing business. So that's where the name Bube's Foods came from. And one particular Saturday, someone sent me a message after I had crafted this really nice marketing message and done my BlackBerry broadcast again, and said, okay, so I want the pap, but I want moi moi with it. No, I want akara with it. And I'm thinking, no, but I don't sell akara. Akara, it's like, it's bean cake. I think that's what they call it. It's beans cake, but it's akara, traditionally called. And so he said to me, I want the pap, but I want akara with it. And I'm thinking, but I didn't say that I sell akara. I only sell pap. Just buy your pap, make your akara at home, make your moi moi at home. Moi moi is a beans pudding, and then enjoy your meal at home. Don't even get me involved. But on the second thought, after I had responded to him, I figured, what would it take me to get into the kitchen and whip up akara? I mean, it's something that I would also do for my family. So I didn't see that it would take anything out of me. And at that time, it was anything to make you buy my pap. Anything to make you buy my pap. What I didn't know was that also began a breakfast tradition. So at this time, there was now a complimentary product to my pap. I will send out a message, talking about if you wanted your akara, moi moi with pap and all of those interesting things. And I was reckoning, so 40,000 naira at that time was over $100 every breakfast, every morning breakfast between 7 and 10. I would wake up at 5 a.m. To go grind the beans for the akara and the moi moi, at the nearby grinder. I mean, I didn't have any facility to grind, and get breakfast ready by 7, and by 10, people would come to pick up. For some customers, I would drive to deliver, this thing to them. And this went on for a few months. But then there was the strain in my marriage. It was affecting me, it was affecting productivity. A lot of things weren't just making sense. And I took a long pause, but I just knew that this was a good idea. I knew that this was something I wanted to do. It was exciting, the possibilities. I was still married, just that it was the strain in the whole relationship. And I remember early 2013, I'm searching everywhere for information on food processing. What did I need to do? How did I need to put the product together? What did I need to know? And I found out and realized that there was this, I came across really a trade fair that happens in Dubai, and it still happens till date. It's around manufacturing and food processing and all that. It happens every February and November. Yeah, fantastic. So this November, I said I was going to go for this fair because I needed to know what equipment to purchase, just what to do. But don't forget that I didn't have any money. I'm broke. So not necessarily that I didn't have any money. I think I'm just saying I didn't have so much, because I still had my business that I was doing. I wasn't very liquid. I couldn't afford to buy a ticket to Dubai. I was looking for money, to buy this ticket. And it happened. The fair was for 3 days. But by the time I got the money for my ticket, I could only attend the fair for a day. And nothing was going to stop me. Nothing. Because if I didn't make it that February, it then meant I would not go until November. Oh no. That was way too long for me to wait on this dream. This is my one idea that looks like, my next big thing. And the thing that kept me going was I imagined that I could sell this product to a whole lot of people. Now, don't forget that coming from a place where, yes, I was earning income, but I didn't have enough to keep. And family was growing, children were growing, things were needed, there were dreams to be fulfilled. I remember one day, I just imagined that if I could sell this product to 1 million people, if I could have this product in 1 million hands, and I'm earning 10 naira, so 10 naira is maybe 1 cent or 10 cents, or probably not up to 10 cents, but I just imagined earning 10 naira on each product and selling 1 million of that product. My goodness, that was all the fire that I needed to keep me going. That was all the motivation. You're talking about 10 million naira in profit? No. You have to be joking. From this one idea, and that was it. So everything I was searching was, how do I put the product together? How do I package the product in a way that I could get it, in the hands of 1 million people and do it hygienically and conveniently? So everything I was researching, I was loading my body with caffeine to keep awake. Google is your best friend, really. Even though there's just so much that you can get from Google, but at least it's a good start. And I went for this fair in Dubai, got in on the very day of the fair. I couldn't even afford a hotel. I couldn't afford accommodation because all I had was my ticket money and maybe any extra to maybe buy food or something. I got to Dubai that morning. Beside the World Trade Center is an Ibis hotel. I went into this Ibis hotel and just a couch like this, like what I'm on right now. I sat on the couch and I slept for a few hours, maybe 3 hours before, or maybe not up to, I'm not so sure. But that was it for me in this Ibis hotel beside the World Trade Center in Dubai. I slept, I caught a nap, I rested, whatever you want to call it, but just sitting this way. When day broke, I went out to the exhibition ground. I walked there, and there was this lady who also was coming pretty early. Somehow, I just thought she would be Nigerian, with her distinct features, and I walked up to her, or she walked towards me, and in our chat, she's Nigerian. So she told me, we just talked, chatted, and then she told me she had gone to the mall that morning to see if she could buy a few things, but then she was told the mall was opening later, and that's why she got to the fairground at that time. But the truth, it was just God, who, when you take a step, would always make a way for you. He is the way. He is the way, the truth, and the life. And the word of God is practical. So just by taking that step, he positioned this woman, whom I'm grateful for, and our paths crossed. So I went I went, did the things I needed to do, picked every brochure my hands could, every brochure that I could lay my hands on, met a few manufacturers, and this acquaintance of mine then offered her room for the night, because I had to leave at night because my flight, it was just 24 hours, but at least I had somewhere to go at the end of the exhibition to freshen up and head back to the airport, back to Nigeria. But that was mind-opening for me, that whole exhibition. I saw equipment that could do what I wanted. It wasn't very easy trying to figure out which equipment would do what, because the product, don't forget, like I said, I know how to do it traditionally in the way that my mom had taught me. I didn't know what to do industrially. I didn't know what equipment to look out for, but I knew the processes. So I know that I have to grind, I have to sieve, I have to do this. So I went with my process, and I'm trying to find how to automate my process. And that was the experience. This was sometime in 2013. Yeah, 2013 February, I remember very well. And I continued doing it the way I was doing it. The retail store was still working. I was still taking it in the cooler, to the store for people to buy. And the Saturday breakfast thing was still happening. Just anything to rack in money. And by October of the same year, that was when the marriage, the first separation happened. And it was it was devastating. I wish I could say otherwise. I wish I could say otherwise, but it was devastating. I had never thought, planned, imagined, dreamt, seen myself to be a single mom. It never crossed my mind. It never crossed my mind. There's no how else to put it. But somehow, I knew that I had to be strong for myself, for my children, for the new businesses, for my dreams, for everything. I just knew I needed to be strong. So at that point, I developed a different kind of strength, resilience. Like, this has to happen, this has to work, perseverance, anything. I couldn't let me down, I couldn't let my children down, I couldn't even let my dreams down. And so my motivation and drive at this time, I became motivated to dream, ambitious to set, very crazy goals, and then, very driven to go after these goals. And I became a mad woman, motivated, ambitious, and driven. But I was driven by financial independence, to care for my family, to support for my children. That was really my drive. In this season of my life, I found two scriptures that eventually became my anchor scriptures in life till this day. one of which is a living dog is better than a dead lion. So I knew that no matter what it is, no matter what I'm going through, I have to live. I have to be alive, And then this other one that talks about the fact that all things are working together for my good, all things, including my marriage that was packing up, everything really. I believed in the midst of the storm, I believed that all of it was working together for my good. That kept me grounded. That gave me a bit of sanity in that season. And something else that used to happen, I used to complain a lot. I used to complain a lot about everything, about the financial. It was more about the money than anything else, So I had this, my friend, would sit for hours, would complain and complain and complain. We're doing business, it's not, paying in the way that we wanted it to pay. But I remember that one day, it's like, what the heck? Why is this all that we're talking about? How about we focus on other things? And from that day, I decided to stop complaining. I don't know how it happened. I don't know if it happened overnight. I wish I can tell you that I know. But I know it was a conscious decision on my part to just stop complaining. There's this other scripture. I'm not a pastor. But there's this other scripture that talks about, how the children of Israel, because of murmuring and all that, didn't enter the promised land. And that scripture, I remember, it was like, no, this can't be life. This can't be life. All of this negativity every day can't just be life. And I just made this conscious decision to stop complaining. And somehow that's where my lifestyle of gratitude came from. I'm grateful for everything. Literally, I'm grateful for the good times, the not so good times, the bad times. I'm grateful. Like, I would always find a reason to be grateful, but that's really where it came from. I just made that conscious decision that I needed something to change in my life, and I could not be doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, really. So I changed that. I stopped complaining. I started to live a life of gratitude, and I went back to my first love of reading. I was reading voraciously, aggressively. I wanted to know more about building a business, One of my favorite quotes is that when you don't have a backup, you sit up. So at this time, I didn't have a backup. I had 3 children under 7 who, they have to grow. And I chose to make life not happen to me. I chose to not allow the seeming challenge, deter me from my future, from my destiny. What kept me going was my dream to put my product, which at this time was my big idea, pap, Bube's pap, in the hands of 1 million people. That was all I needed. So I needed to grow, to become the person who would lead this kind of business. So I was reading. Personal development was all I was doing in that season. I remember this one time I was lying on my couch, and I'm not saying that everybody will have the same experience, but when it comes to I and God and my God conversations, I would say that sometimes, not all the times, I'm a bit sensitive, and I can pick it. It may not make sense at that time, but I just go in, I just go in. I'm a risk taker. So I remember this one time, I see clearly right now as I'm speaking, I'm lying on the couch in the living room, and I heard the word communication strategy. I've never heard that word. I don't know what it meant, but I picked my darling Google again, and I'm checking communication strategy. And then I found that there was a workshop, a seminar, something, on communication strategy. This was in Washington. I called them, paid for the program, booked my ticket, and I was in DC. It was a 2-day thing. They were talking, and everything they were saying was just going over my head because I didn't understand what they were saying. But for me, I had taken that step. That was what was important. I met quite a few people, not necessarily because I've kept those relationships, but I remember that one of the speakers, one of the panelists at this seminar was a woman that I thought, oh, wow. Funnily, she eventually became a president of a country But so I took a picture with her, if that's a consolation. So that connection was there. While there, I'm looking for what's the next thing. I don't know how I found it. I don't know if I found it online or if these guys in Washington told me about the program. I honestly can't remember. But there was this other program in the UK, Intensive Media Relations. It was a 5-day program. I signed up for it. At this time, I'm signing up with my last card, everything that I have, but I just knew that I needed to learn. Personal development is very, very, very important, critical, crucial for whatever level you're at. Investment in yourself, I believe, pays the highest return on investment. So just like a mad woman, I was investing in me. I needed to become not necessarily a different person, but just a better version of myself. So I went for this program in the UK, Intensive Media Relations. I remember also, so I'm working on this business, Bubes Foods, trying to make the best of it. And I remember saying, this doesn't look just like a business. It looks like a project. It's like different parts coming together. So I've never had to work a 9 to 5. So I'm learning, all of these things by myself, technically. And so I started to search for project management programs. And not to say that there were no programs in Nigeria, but it was really what I was finding. Maybe, I don't know, but I found another project management program. Now I'm talking some 6 years ago. So these things were not maybe as available as they are right now because social media is putting these things in our faces. So I went to the UK again for this project management program simply because I just knew that this business is bigger than this thing that I'm doing. That same 2014, I think, or sometime, no. So by this time it was 2016 with the project management program. I then, signed up for owner manager program in Lagos Business School. It was a 6-month program with other business owners. From there, we had an exchange program at Strathmore Business School in Kenya. I still have my colleagues as my friends and my network. That was it. But really, in this season of my life, rather than dwell or, call a pity party and have all of that victim mindset and victim mentality, like the whole world or my whole world has crumbled. No, I chose to do things differently. I chose to improve myself. I chose to become a better version of me. And all of that. And, so just reading. I remember this one time, I bought 40 books in a single month and I read 9. So there was no time for TV, there was no time for socializing, and I had no problems with it. I had no qualms with it. It was my happy place. I needed to soak in so much at the same time while parenting my 3 kids. In my crazy, quest for knowledge, I read this book, E-Myth Revisited. I mean, most entrepreneurs would know the book. And it talked about business coaching, and that was the first time I heard anything about business coaching. I quickly searched them up online and signed up with one of their business coaches because I wanted to grow this thing. Don't forget that my dream to put it in the hands of 1 million people to make a profit of 10 million naira, which, well, interestingly, at the dollar rate today is just a little over $10,000. But at that time, it was big money. It was big money to me, and that was my drive. My dream was my drive. That dream felt like it had the key, to unlock the dream life for myself and my children, and all that. So I was pursuing this dream with everything that I have in me. And so I signed up for their business coaching program. And by the first 2 sessions, we were talking about my life, my purpose, my passion, and all that. That's what we were talking about. And for the life of me, I had held 2 seminars out of pocket that I titled Be Your Best. Even in the midst of my not being as liquid, but I never thought that was my passion. I never thought that was something I was passionate about, or I didn't link it to purpose or anything. I just knew that I just wanted people to be more. Like anything to jack people out of their comfort zones and say to them, listen, there is more and you can be more, you can do this. That was just what it was for me, and but it was from that coaching program I realized that, wait a minute, this thing that I had done for free for, at 2 different times is actually my passion. I then realized at that time that I'm passionate about people maximizing their potential and achieving their dreams, really and truly. For me, it's your dreams are valid, really. Dream it, do it, act on it, and you will manifest it. That changed my mindset. That changed everything I was doing. So I then became a bit more determined to live my life differently, to reach out to more people, to inspire more people, or I didn't start out inspiring more people, but just to motivate more people, that push to do and all. And by this time there was Instagram. All I needed to do was click the live button and I go live and I'm talking to whoever, kept to listen, telling them, they could be more. But I was teaching more and speaking more from my day-to-day experiences, my day-to-day life, how I was trying to build this business, from the scratch, from something that nobody, thought would really be something big. If you're Nigerian, or even if you're not Nigerian, I'll tell you the typical pap seller, hawks the product on a tray on their head. So how do you want to explain that Ijeoma graduate, had a supposedly thriving luxury retail store, you're now selling pap? I remember one time at the very beginning of the journey, a very, very close friend of mine, had called me to say, babe, this one you're selling pap, why not donut? I have a good sense of humor, I guess. I love to have a good laugh. And I just said to her, if I sell donut, what would Mr. Biggs, so Mr. Biggs is a fast food franchise in Nigeria. If I sell donut, what would they sell? And I just laughed it off, and I continued. So this was me showing up live very random times, saying to people, if I can do what I'm doing with pap, which is a local meal that is really thought of as food of the poor, to be honest, then you can do anything. You can be anything. And without much effort, without really, putting much thought to it, the audience was growing and I was receiving messages left, right, and center. You're inspiring me, you inspire me. So even the quote that I used earlier on was a phrase that I came up with, that when you don't have a backup, you sit up. I remember the day that I had that session and I used it the first time. A lot of people got up on their feet and started doing something. A friend of mine even called me afterwards and said, somebody came to me for coaching because she said, Mwanya Kamu, literal translation for the pap seller, says that she had a session today that was like an eye-opener for me and all that. So I just continued doing this thing. But the funny part was I was having more fun showing up live, speaking to my tribe of women, as it were, than going every day, showing up at work every day for this manufacturing business that I had then set up. And I was feeling guilty because nobody told me that I could have it all. It was either you're doing this or doing that, but nobody really told me that I could have it all. So at this time, fast forward, after 3 years of running the business from home, I set up a factory. I should tell you the journey of setting up the factory, because here, part of what I aim to do with my content is to show a lot of the behind the scenes, and so that the challenges. It's not just about the successes. There is a lot of life challenges. It's not just about building a business, whether you want to grow in your career. But I know more about business, and that's what I've done all my life. So that's what I'm tailored to speak on. So I remember going around the city that I was living in at the time. I was living in Abuja in Nigeria, and I'm looking for a space that I could split into two. Have one for my manufacturing and have another one, the retail store still there. But I didn't find anything. There was nothing that I could find. Now, even that was fed by the thought that if I wanted to reach 1 million people, it's one thing to dream, it's another thing to set goals and the plan that would help you to reach that dream. If I needed to put my products in 1 million hands, that means I needed to sell them in retail stores. If I needed to sell them in retail stores, that means I have a NAFDAC number. If you're in the US, it's your FDA. I don't know what it's called in the UK, but some food certification that would allow us sell in stores. If I need to sell, get a NAFDAC registration number, then I need to set up a facility. So it's not that I woke up with the intention and intent to set up a factory, but everything I was then doing going forward was, how do I put my product in 1 million hands? At this point, I would ask you, what is your dream? What is your big idea? What is your dream? What is it that you wake up thinking? So, and then at this point, I got a new home. I thought I would use the boys' quarters. So maybe if you're outside of Nigeria, what you would call your basement, to do the production. By the time the NAFDAC team came, they said, oh, because it was attached to the main building, I couldn't use it. It's like, it was one hurdle after another, but the dream kept me going. I had been introduced to a lady who was more like, but I could say a consultant, but she's really a public analyst, to help me with the setup for NAFDAC. And we're busy looking for location for the facility. Now, fast forward, at some point I had gotten a piece of land, in all of these things. And then one day, I just remember saying to her, I have land somewhere, but it's very far. Because really, the place was supposedly very far to me at the time, which was where I could afford to buy that piece of land. Maybe even the story about the piece of land, story for another day, another video. But, and she looked at me and said, so why have you been stressing us? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm saying it's far. She said, it's manufacturing. It's a factory. You don't need it. All you need is a place and a space and all that. And that, I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes. So the guy who made me buy the land was my electrician. And then I asked him, I said, okay, to put a small I-line building, a boys' quarter, yeah, so that's what we'll call it in Nigeria, to put a small I-line building, what would it cost me? Thank God that this guy said to me 1.5 million naira at that time. I'm thinking, that's the price of a handbag. That's not even up to the cost of summer holiday with the children. What are we talking about? Can we start? And this was December 2014. I remember December 8th, 2014, actually. So we went to clear the place because in my head, I'm thinking, oh, it's 1.5 million and this building will be finished. Well, you know how they say you start and then you realize that, what? We ended up spending 4 times the amount that he told me. So 1.5 million at that time was, how much was that in dollars? Maybe I'll type that out in the caption just so that, because I can't do the math right now. And in 4 months, so at this time, of course, I had still stocked up on jewelry, again. So I ran out of money to build. And every Saturday, every weekend, I would go to the market, sell a set of jewelry, pay the workers, buy block. That was it. I mean, we were just putting in one block after another, one block after another. And interestingly, in 4 months, we had that building up. So it was a smaller facility. We still had a rented space where we were selling from, which was the retail store for the pap. Now, interesting thing is that by this time I had shut down the luxury store. It wasn't as exciting as this my pap business that I'm selling for 600 naira, which technically right now all I'm saying is that product was worth, 1 pack was less than $1. But it was so exciting, the possibility of it. Don't forget my big dream of putting it in the hands of 1 million people and earning 10 million naira in profit. It was driving me every day. And then so we finished that building, and I remember, so maybe 8th is the lucky number. I remember that by June 8th, 2015, we had our first set of, what's going on here? We had our first set of 8 staff show up at the factory and ready to start production. Of course, I didn't have all the equipment, so a lot of things were still manual. I had bought, you know, a few things, whatever, just put something together, let's start. That was all that was on my mind, and we started June 8th, 2015. By 2016, the country was in a recession. My brand new business was already shaking. Everything had gone up astronomically. The foreign exchange, everything, every projection, every business plan thrown into the gutters. And it was just a case of, are you going to quit or are you going to keep going? Well, as a mad woman who's motivated to dream, ambitious to set mad goals, and driven to go for these goals, I knew that I had no option but to keep going. The challenges, my goodness gracious. The challenges, I mean, you know, so it was interesting. It was interesting. It was very interesting, but I didn't have a choice. I didn't know that I considered quitting. It was, even though it's an option, I always say to people that giving up is an option, but it wasn't an option that I considered myself at that time. So the recession, exchange rates, our suppliers were out of business. We didn't have packaging top to pack our products. Everything went haywire. It took us 6 months of carrying our mold, our plastic mold, you know, from looking for supplier before we found some suppliers in the East and all of that. But then we were back in business. And really and truly, when I was thinking about this 1 million people who could buy Bube's pap, I wasn't thinking local. I was thinking export, global. I was thinking about, you know, the Africans in diaspora. Because somehow in my head, I just assumed that, you know, the people here in Nigeria, you know, would have their ways of making the pap and may not necessarily be that large a market to give me the 10 million naira profit, if you get what I mean, which is driving me. So I had all my thoughts was towards export, towards how do I get this in the hands of Africans in diaspora. So that was also a drive, but all of it fits into my big dream of getting the products in the hands of 1 million people. So the question was simple: where do I get my 1 million people to get my products in their hands? Fast forward to a few years later, you know, the business had grown in terms of technology, in terms of how we were packaging. It was beautiful, even if I may say so myself. And then I thought it was time to export. I flew to the US, looked around, you know, studying the market research really, to see how much were they selling pap in that climb, how were they packaging, what, you know, just generally filling me in, you know, researching on the market to know what the pricing could be and all that. And then see if I could find what are the African stores out there, who are the potential buyers, just all of those things. And then I got into production without a buyer. I had mentioned earlier on in this video that I am a risk taker. I didn't have a buyer, but we got into production. Today has been amazing. I feel you, even though I'm here behind this camera, like I'm speaking to you personally. You, yes you. Yes, you ambitious woman. Yes, you premium queen. But all I can say to you is that we did it. Click the like button, subscribe, share. I see you in the next video where I'll share with you the export experiences and everything else about the journey. Thank you and see you next time.